This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today I'm honored to have actor, former professional wrestler, three-time King of Pancreas, former UFC champion, UFC Hall of Famer, master of the liver shot, and the only Dutch champion in UFC history, the legendary Bas Rutten. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Nice introduction. It's always good to, laying down memory lane, going down memory lane a little bit. Go, oh yeah, I did that. I did that. Kind of cool.
There's not many people out there that have the accomplishments you have in martial arts, let alone acting.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just putting your mind to it, right? It's everybody goes, oh, the acting went so well. I say, you have no clue what I did for it. I went to acting classes right away when I came into America. That was 23 years ago. Because I knew eventually I wanted to do something like that. It's just what I always do. Just make sure that you are prepared for what you want to do next. Because you never know what's going to happen in fighting, If I break my leg, if a car hits me and I have a compound fracture in my leg, that's it, bye career. And if you don't have a backup plan, you see, so that's how I approach everything in life, my entire life. My parents instilled that in me.
Now, I noticed before we came on, you were smoking some type of cigar. What's in there? Is that just a regular cigar?
It's just a regular cigar, yeah. Alec Baldwin. It was a cigar I got last my birthday from Dwayne Ludwig. He's my good man, the fighter.
I wasn't sure if there's CBD in there or something like that.
No. This is just for me doing this in the morning. I was doing chew, for the very light one that I had. But I would last Lent when I was going to that, I say, I'm going to stop that. So I start stopping everything. I just stopped drinking. I stopped, and I'm not saying that I don't drink anymore. But I said, I'm just going to stop for a couple of months, see what happens, and I'm feeling great. So why not? And before people go like, oh, he was drunk. I wasn't drunk. And the last time I was drunk was my birthday, which was in February. So but if I drink 4 beers, I already go like the next day. Why did I drink 4 beers? Why would I? I don't feel anything. I don't have a hangover or whatever it is. But still, why did I felt the need to get those extra beers? And that's what I just want to control.
And as far as your partying history, there's rumors online that you used to be a big partier, used to get into numerous street fights. Is that before your MMA and kickboxing career, or were you still doing that while you were fighting?
I think the real partying started when I started competing, because you're focused for like 2 months, 6 weeks, you're fully locked in, you can't do anything. Right, and then after the fight, now it's time to party. Though it was only 3 times because in Japan you fought a lot. Like I think my first year I fought 8 fights. My second year I fought 9 fights. You see, so you're constantly training. So I would come home, I would party crazy like for 2 days, and then I go back to training again. And and those things. Yeah, there have been some street fights, but not as many what people think. They go, oh, the guy wasn't 200 street fighters. No freaking way, not even close. Not even 40, I think, so, and that includes me, including the fights that I had as a bouncer, so one thing though, if I'm drunk, I'm a very happy guy. It's very hard to get into a fight with me. I always try to avoid. I've never been the instigator. That I can tell you 100%.
Now, I've been a bouncer here in Canada. It can have its tense moments. How was it over in Holland as a bouncer? Is there a lot of fights over there?
Yeah, there is, and it's, but if you get good friends, so good partners at the door, everything's okay. And most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, I will solve it with talking. I take him to the side and I break down what is going on. If a guy looked at a woman, he was looking at my wife. I said, did he touch her? No. Did he talk to her? No. Did he go, dude, that's a compliment, right? It's better than he looks at your wife and he goes like doing that. This means, oh, she's very beautiful, but he didn't do anything personal to you. And most of the time when you start talking like that, they realize, yeah, that was really stupid of me. I'm getting angry because my wife, my girlfriend is beautiful and people looking at her. It's kind of stupid. As long as they don't cross the barrier, like touching her or pulling her away and trying to say certain things, no, it's all good. So most of the time when you break it down, it ends with no fight.
And as far as that Lee Murray versus Tito Ortiz street fight, I heard Pat Miletich, he gave his version to me. I heard Tito's version. I also heard you were there. I was wondering if we could get your version.
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. And, I heard it from Pat also and from Tito. But like always, for me, this is the thing that a lot of people need to do right now, especially this time. Right? before you say something, make sure you're 100% correct with what you are going to say. So if you have to give a decision about two things or two groups or two people, whatever it is, make sure you know both stories before you enter that conversation. That's the decent thing to do. I went wrong in the past a few times. I know with a good friend of mine, and thankfully, he just showed me the proof. He actually had a recording of a certain conversation that I claim never happened with a certain person, but he showed me the recording, and since that moment, that's a long time ago. It's like in 2005. I've never made my opinion anymore if I didn't know anything about the other person.
And as far as Lee Murray himself, if it wasn't for his legal troubles, he's a pretty amazing fighter. What's your opinion of him as a fighter, as well as Tito Ortiz, who I know you're one of Tito's heroes?
Yeah, I love Tito. I love Murray also. He was you like that guy who doesn't give a crap, so you like the clean guy as well. But then once in a while, a guy like that comes along, and you gravitate towards the guy because there's a little bit of how do you say animal feelings in there, but he's also a really good fighter. So that attracts me as a person. Later on with what he did, of course, with the robbery and all that stuff. Well, on one side, if nobody got hurt, you go like, okay, that was a pretty cool move. But that I would say I'm not a big supporter of course. But as a fighter, oh yeah, and just don't give a crap about anybody, who you are or what you are. He just when he feels he's right, he's going in there. And Tito is the same. Tito was one of those guys who, in the beginning, I remember he lost his fight against Frank Shamrock, which was actually winning, but in the last round, stamina made Frank win that fight in the final round. And I remember I was at that fight. We're driving back to the airport the next day, and Tito was in the same bus. And he said, "Can I sit next to you?" I said, "Sure." And he started asking me all these questions, how I would prepare, what I would do for conditioning in Japan for my 30-minute fights. So I told him what I was doing. And then suddenly Tito became the guy who was known for his stamina. You see, so he just knew what he needed to work on. It's the same with me. I was with submissions. I realized if I don't learn the submission game, I might get lucky one time, but, if I defend my title, I might lose by way of submission. So I either learn it or I stop this crap. And, crap, it was no crap, but if you lose, you feel like crap. And Tito had the same thing, he found what his downside was, which was stamina, and then he flipped it so around, he became known for always being in incredible stamina. And I love people like that.
Now, you were one of Kimbo Slice's trainers. What's your opinion of him as a fighter overall?
Yeah, Kimbo, well, he came all the way back, right? So because we know some people, so the for his first fight, he came to train with us for a lot of pretty much all his fights. Great guy, great person, always willing to train. Too bad he started getting knee injury. The knee injuries really, it was holding him back. He couldn't do a lot on the ground because of his knees. He simply couldn't be on his knees. We were at a friend of mine who was the doctor, was a knee surgeon, and he would get every 3 weeks, he would get like shots in his knees because it was hurting him so bad. So I think if he wouldn't have had those knees, so he could focus a little bit more on the ground and some reversals that he already did in fights, I was actually pretty amazed with him. And then take that with his manager, Mike, and the group that he had around him. Dude, it was so much fun hanging out with these guys. They're hilarious. Everybody's cracking jokes all day long, and wherever you go with Kimbo, I mean, we would do this, for instance. We would go, he was fighting in Texas, in Houston, I think it was. No, he was fighting Houston, the fighter. And we were somewhere in a hotel, and he said, "Hey, let's kill some time. Let's buy some video games." So they went and bought a video console, like a PlayStation, whatever it was. And then they went to the doors. We had all connecting rooms. They opened everything. They put like 4 TVs together in a circle, like facing out, so that everybody would sit down. And they were just all day long. Everybody was playing video games against each other. But, going to Best Buy and buy the PlayStation or whatever it was at the time, I mean, you can't go anywhere with Kimbo. I mean, everybody knows this guy. So you walk into the Best Buy, that's it. One person comes, and then the whole freaking place starts. So that was a little hard for him. I can only imagine what it must be for him to go through regular life because everybody recognized him.
Now, you, of course, had your fights with Ken Shamrock, and there was that big, I think it was in Bellator, Kimbo against Shamrock. many people feel that there could have been some underhanded stuff that went on in that fight. What's your opinion of it?
No, that was not. He simply lost. Kimbo's not a guy who makes fights or fixes fights. I can tell you that for sure. That's just not the way. If he loses, he wants to lose for real. If he wants to win for real. So no, that was great. That was for me great also, because I know about my grappling skills when I was with, of course, training with Kimbo. So for me, that was a fight, because that was a fight that I always wanted. I wanted to fight Ken again when he came to Pride. You know, I was a commentator, and I told him, I said, listen, I want to fight him now. You know, because somehow we always thought he's defending. I saw this. Ken was saying that I already knew how to do submissions because I beat somebody with a side choke. And I go, a side choke, guys. I won 2 fights by a guillotine choke, 1 with a side choke, which all 3 are white belt moves. You have to understand also that if any fighter, any striker will know the guillotine, because that's the first thing you're going to do. So they're going to shoot in. You're going to wrap your arm around his neck, because it's the only, they call it the fighter submission. So I was training 9 months when I fought him for the very first time, I believe, or 12 months, or I don't know. So, but I trained maybe once every 3 weeks. I had a submission class. So that was the difference, you know. And then finally, once Leon Van Dijk came, my buddy, who I met in August, I was 94, I believe. That's when I started training more on submissions. But still, we would do like twice a week. We weren't really going for it. You always want to do what you know best, you know, striking, because we love this, so let's do the striking, you know. And then when I lost my last fight against Ken, that was like 6 months after I met Leon. That was the moment that I said, okay, you know, now let's just throw all the striking out of the training. We're just going to do 4 times a week. I would do Thai pads for my stamina. And the rest we would go 2 or 3 times a day. We would start submission fighting, and that was it. Then I never lost a fight anymore. So needless to say, when he came to Pride with my new fighting skills, I go, hey, I would love to fight him, you know. So it was the only black page in my book that I didn't set the record straight with. But he said, no, we already did it twice. We don't need to do it 3rd time. So it didn't happen, unfortunately.
But he did fight Tito Ortiz 3 times.
Yep.
I guess he just didn't want to give it to you. He probably knew that it'd be more difficult, maybe.
Well, it's what he said on our show also against Kenny Rice and myself. He said, well, I've been following his career. But you know what? I have to also say that sometimes, you know, you say certain things and maybe you're not 100% behind it, right? I mean, that's possible to be just a good person. I do that. I have done that in the past. So it's very possible. But don't say me that you didn't say it, because you did say it. You know, so, but it's okay. It doesn't really matter, you know. It's like if you look, Tito lost from Frank, I beat Frank, and then if you start going all this back and then with Kimbo, you know, okay, I had Kimbo, so for me everything is okay. I'm 100% happy with everything I did.
What are the differences in personalities between Frank and Ken?
Oh, Frank is more the spiritual guy, the more relaxing one. Ken, I think, you know, he's very sturdy. And don't get me wrong, Ken is a really nice guy. I always had a really great time with Ken. I also think that he's a really good commentator. You know, I always wanted to see him in commentate, but you hear these crazy stories, you know. I don't know what happened there, but he's a little bit more stern, and he looks like he's not approachable, which scares a lot of people off. But if you step up to him and say, hey, Ken, how are you doing? He will be completely, you will not expect what you're going to see. He's a very, very good, nice person. And Frank is, you can see from a distance, you can approach this guy, that's going to be okay. It's just, I think the mindset of Ken is a little bit, is always, you know, maybe, you don't know what happens. Like in the past, I was bullied a lot. I bullied a lot when I was a kid, like a lot, every day, you know, and I still have certain things, like if I see people, I just avoid, because if somebody says something, I know myself, you know, I go, excuse me. So I try to avoid certain things that I might look to people that sometimes I don't show interest, but I do that for certain reasons. And, you know, we fighters, we all fight for a reason. I was talking about it yesterday at a barbecue we had. I mean, there's not many fighters who had nothing happened in their life to them. You know, there's a reason we are fighting. It's either you've been bullied, your father was bad, you got beatings. You know, something is there that you need to prove yourself and want to become a fighter. So, and I think that is with Ken as well. But as soon as you open your mouth, you say, hey, Ken, how you doing? He'll be the nicest person you ever meet.
Now, not that you need $5, but Jackalope Music tips you $5 and says, who is your favorite to win GSP versus Anderson Silva if it were to happen?
I would say GSP. And the only reason I'm saying is this because GSP is not going to stand with Anderson, and he was going to take him down. And his takedowns are really good. He knows how to stay out of submissions. He's just a very talented fighter, and I'm not saying Anderson is not, but on the ground, he is. Once you take him to the ground, if he can't stop a takedown and you be on top, well, Chael Sonnen almost pulled it off until he got triangle choked at the very end. But you see, George St. Pierre won't make that mistake. Now, don't get me wrong. If a punch lands somewhere just before that takedown, that might rule in the favor of Anderson Silva. But if you have to put your money down, I would go with the guy who has a really strong takedown and has a really heavy top control, and he will stay on top and he will keep on moving so that they don't restart the fight again. And if he does it every round, well, he's going to win the fight.
And you have another fan here that's tipped you another $5 and says, where would you rank Mirko Cro Cop of all-time fighters?
Oh, right at the very top. It's so bad when I think you should rank fighters on when they were at their peaks. Like a Fedor Emelianenko. Yeah, sure, when he started to lose. Yeah, you fight freaking 36 fights and wars. All these crazy opponents that he had. And it's the same with Cro Cop. Cro Cop comes from K1. I mean, the injuries in K1 have to be way more than you have in submission fighting, because you're constantly kicking elbows, you're hurting yourself. There's a lot of sparring going on. I remember my time from kickboxing and Thai boxing. I had a lot of injuries compared to mixed martial arts. So I think that he should be at the very top. It's hard to say who's top 1 and 2 and 3 and all that stuff. I always say if I'm in the top 100, and I'll actually take that back. If I'm in the top 1,000. I'm a pretty happy guy, and I'm talking like if over 20 more years, or Bas, if I'm still in the top 1,000, we're talking about 7 billion people on this planet. And you're one of the 1,000, I'm very happy with what I do if I'm in the top 1,000. So that's what I always say.
And this is an interesting question because I've interviewed Tank Abbott, and there seems to be some heat between you and Tank. This fan is asking, why didn't you ever fight Tank, and what was the real story of you confronting Tank publicly?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to have him with respect. Something happened at the airport. He tried to intimidate with some friends, and that backfired, trust me. But later on, he came to apologize and he wanted to make up. So from that moment on, I said, okay, then I'm going to keep the story out. That's it. But I never fought him because he didn't want to fight. That's very simple. In my last fight, I was going to face Kimo Leopoldo. He tested positive for steroids. So we called Tank, who has been saying the whole time in these months leading up there, he wants to fight me, Of course, when we asked him to fight him, he wanted I think a minimum of $500,000 or $1 million. He priced himself out of the bucket. To me, that means you don't want to fight. I mean, come on, let's be honest here, because otherwise you would have simply taken the fight. So yeah, and over that public thing, I'm going to just let it go because that happened. But trust me, it ruled in my favor.
Well, I know Tank doesn't mind people talking about him, whether it's good or bad. He seems like the type that doesn't really care. There's a bunch of fans on here asking, why is Dutch kickboxing so popular and so high quality?
Those guys, the early days, the Johan Vos and Jan Plas, those were the guys, and Tom Haring, those were the three major trainers in Holland who went to Thailand, got their butts handed to them, and then they realized, wait a minute, the way to attack these guys is putting Western boxing and low kicks and kicking together. Let's do that. So that's what they started to do, and then they start terrorizing those Thais. So that's what I think the biggest step was. You had a front runner here also, Ben Urquides, but that was without low kicks. But that guy was the same thing. That's why he has a very good boxer, great hands, and his kicks were freaking phenomenal. So combine those two skills and then setting up, because in Thailand they were only you kick, you kick back, you kick, you kick back. It's like you're trading kicks for kicks. Like the block from a kick is the load up for your kick back. You see it from this side also. So that's their the style of fighting. If you watch a Thai fight, especially in the early days, because the Dutch changed it for them, now they have way better hands. But in the early days, we're going back to Mike Tyson, Ramon Dekkers, and all these guys, and Ernesto Hoos and Rob Kamen and Brilleman, all these guys who went over to Thailand. They just had really great hands, and they had great kicks, and then they just that was their way. And nowadays, you have to understand also, like, we have fights every week in Holland, Thai boxing matches. It's almost like there's shows everywhere. Even if smaller shows, it doesn't matter. But if you want to Thai box, well, you can fight coming weekend. You can find a show in Holland. So the people just love to watch it, and we have natural heavyweights. So that made us rise to the occasion. I say we, but I'm not. People always talk about my striking and how great it is, and I know that, and it became much better. Let me tell you that. And I was a really good striker in training. But in Thai boxing itself, I just won because I had brute power. I wasn't that super technical. I was technical, but I went out of the window. I think it's probably nerves or something. Once I started fighting in Japan, that changed my life instantly. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the people who were so quiet and it was so relaxed and no people and nobody screaming. And I was completely different. I was amazed with myself. I mean, I was like, what the heck is, I got no nerves. I got no nothing. Everything is working. Everything. And I'm so calm and collected. And maybe it was also because I found out on the day of the fight that there was only one round of 30 minutes. That was a big one. And my opponent was 35 pounds heavier, which I also thought it was not possible, but there was no weight classes, which I didn't know. So that kind of freaked me out in the beginning. So I put these big R's on my hand. It stands for relax, or rustig. That's what it means in Dutch, which is coincidentally the same word, rustig, relax. So me knowing that I had to go 30 minutes, if I would unload like I would do in my Thai boxing matches in Holland, and I could not put him away the first 1.5, 2 minutes, I got 28 minutes to go. And Japanese guys, they're known for being very tough. So that might backfire for me, and then I'm going to be in trouble. So maybe that together with the whole audience, like nobody says a word, like there's nothing. You can sit in the 40th row and you can speak to me like I'm speaking to you right now, and I will understand everything in the ring. That is how quiet it is. Nobody says a thing. They understand that we are actually the professionals and not them. Like the rest of the world, everybody screams and they want to tell you what to do. So I think all that combination, that made me into the fighter that I became. Suddenly I could bring the striking game that I had in the gym, I brought it to the fighting game. And that is the trick to success in everything. Like all these guys, they say, oh, I trained for 5 years and I do this, I'm very good. Doesn't mean anything, zero. Do it under pressure. And I'm a big proponent of that because, I fought under pressure in Thai boxing and it wasn't pretty. I started really nice, but I got hit and I got angry and boom, 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 I would just knock him out. But, if I would have at that time fought an A class, because I wasn't even A class. A class is professional. I wasn't. I fought B. That's the highest I fought before that. I fought 2 A classes and a B. And before that was C class. That's where I destroyed everybody. So, yeah, I was always a good striker in the gym. In the fight, I was just a very aggressive and powerful guy. But like Peter Ertz, Ernesto Hoos, Rob Kamen, Sammy Shield, Alistair Overeem, all these guys, those are really great strikers in Thai boxing. Now, if I would Thai boxing with what I have now, I will be, of course, much better than I was all the way back before. So, yeah, no, Japan made me a much better fighter.
Did it concern you at all that there was no drug testing over in Japan for your fights over there?
Yeah, it's annoying. You see guys who fluctuate 20, 25 pounds. How can you be 25 pounds heavier than one time and then 20 pounds lighter the other time? You watch me when I fought, I might have gained 8 pounds in my entire career. And I was always the same weight. So, yeah, but for me, it's a weakness. For me, it's a thing that if you grab towards it, I think you already mentally were quitting. And you can see, you look at people now, how they look, and they're suddenly 30 pounds lighter than they were before. Well, you do the math yourself, right? It's not because they got sick. No, it's because they put it on unnaturally. You see, I'm actually heavier now than I was when I was competing, but that's also, of course, because I'm not in full training. But, I'm like 214 pounds now, and I was always around 208, around that weight. So, yeah, it's a shame. But like I said, I don't really care. I care about technique. It won't do anything for your technique. It will crush your stamina. Well, nowadays you hear all these other crazy stories that they have EPO and all that stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about. Last time I was talking to somebody and they said that they only need like a couple of days and it's literally out of their system. I go, I always thought that if you take a shot of whatever a steroid you do, that's for months inside your body. They can detect that for months. But apparently the newest technology, you have stuff that you can do days before. So don't quote me on it because that's what they just tell me. So I have no clue about that stuff, and I'll stay far away from it.
John tipped you $5. He says he enjoyed your career. Who is the one guy you didn't get to fight that you wanted to? And was there a beef between you and a Chicago Bears legend one night?
Yeah, gee. I was talking about it yesterday about that. Okay. So first, the Chicago Bear legend. Yeah, that was Urlacher, but Urlacher didn't start it. There was his brother, and he just was helping his brother. And I'm going to leave it like that because I'm when I told this story on the Best Damn Sports Show period, I thought everybody knew this story, because they asked me about it. I thought it was well known. And then I realized it wasn't. So the next day, of course, Urlacher gets attacked. And for what? He was just defending his brother because his brother was the douchebag. He started this whole thing. So, and he just came at the last moment. It was not like he was there the whole time. He just sees his brother in trouble and, let's help my brother. So 100% understandable for that. And what was the first question?
Is there anyone that you wanted to fight that you never got the chance to fight? I'm sure there's tons.
Well, I always wanted to fight Rickson Gracie at the time, and it was not, everybody thought that we hated each other. It was not true at all. I thankfully, I think in 2006 or 2007, I met him in China. He walked up to me, we were at breakfast, and he said, "Hey, boss." I go, "Dude, very good meeting you." I said, "What is this?" He says, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Okay, good." Because for me, I just wanted to fight him because he was considered the best submission guy. Remember when Royce Gracie said that, "Oh, if you think I'm good, you should see my brother Rickson Gracie." Boom, that's put him on the radar, of course. Now I'm going to say, hey, I would love to see if I even can stay out of his submissions because his submissions are so freaking good. It will be just a good test for me to do. I always wanted to fight the top guys. I never got like picking fights. I was one time after a fight in Pancras, and the promoter comes up and he says, "Okay, you're fighting so-and-so next month, and you're fighting so-and-so." And so they tell all the fighters who's fighting. And one of these fighters goes like, "I don't want to fight him. Give me somebody else." He says, "Okay, what about him?" And he goes, "No, I don't want to fight that guy also." And I'm standing there, and I go like, whoa. You can say no? I just always said yes because I feel that if I say no, they're going to think I'm afraid. I say, I'll fight just whatever they tell me to fight. I'm going to fight him, So you want to fight the top dogs, and then hopefully you can beat them, Do I believe that I crush everybody? Well, at the moment when I say yes, yeah, I'm going to have to believe that. I have to because it's very unhealthy for me to think that I'm not going to win the fight. So, yeah, I'll be an egomaniac at that moment. But if that's the truth, that's a different story as long as you are convinced that you're going to win because then you perform the best. So shooting for the stars. That's what I always say. Why would you go average if you can go all the way?
Now, this is mostly a wrestling channel. Someone had a question on here regarding the Bradshaw and Morrow situation where you, I guess, stuck up for Morrow when he was being bullied by one of the WWE announcers, JBL. Yeah,
it's just dumb people who don't realize over the years that they become the douchebag, and for them doing certain things to people, it's all normal, but they don't think about how certain people are. Like Mauro's bipolar, he takes an insult way different than any other person takes. For him, it's like an intensify by 30, and it really crushes him. It can crush him. Sometimes he doesn't care at all. But you don't know because that's his disease. Sometimes he shoots up and down. And I've seen him in situations. I have to talk to him like completely crazy, and for a guy who knows that Mauro is bipolar and then start talking like that, yeah, you're just a douchebag. You have no clue. Those are the people who would say to somebody, if somebody has anxiety, they say, well, why don't you just stop having anxiety or depressed? But just be happy. I go, yeah, it was that easy. You didn't need all these doctors, right? I mean, it's a disease. It's something that they cannot do anything about. You don't believe that they don't want to be afraid or having anxiety? Of course they don't want to. It's not as simple as saying. I was depressed for about 3 months. And you have to understand, I'm never depressed. With me, everything is always full on. And it was after my last fight in 2006, a couple of months after that, suddenly, I don't know where it came from, but I was considering suicide. I was literally with my car, and then I saw a crossover, and I thought, what if I just pile drive my car into it? It's all going to be over. And I was shaking awake. I go, dude, what are you thinking? What's going on? And I had these sweaty palms. It was so weird. And then thankfully, I started putting in my mind a list together with all the good things that I have in life and all the bad things. And then you're going to find out that all the good things outweigh by so much all the bad things. And that got me out of it. And suddenly everything was back to normal. But I tell you one thing, at that moment, I had no control. So every time when I see a commercial with people, and they're talking about depression, do I feel? Because I felt for 3 months, I felt what they have every single day. It's a very hard thing. And it's not like you can say, oh, let's be happy. It doesn't work like that. These are just dumb people who don't look into anything unless it happens to a family member or something like that. It's like, for instance, what's his name? Kanye West, right? Oh, he comes up and he grabs the microphone out of her hand, and everybody go, oh, he's a piece of crap, including me. But then you find out he's also bipolar. He can't control his emotions. Actually, so right away he got a pass from me because that's what happens. You have to figure things out. If some people do really weird things, there might be a reason behind it. And if you don't know, maybe you should Google about it or find out before you're going to start making comments. Which is what we see right now in this day and age. Everybody's making comments and nobody's checking anything.
Did he ever apologize after you stepped in tomorrow or anything like that?
No, I think that he apologized like a half, not to me, but to tomorrow. I think, that, it was wrong, but it never comes from the heart. You can when I saw Conor McGregor, when he hit that older guy, and then I saw him in an interview afterwards, that was an interview that I said, okay, he feels really bad about what he did. You could tell, but with that guy, I couldn't really tell. When they say it, it doesn't match the facial expression. So
now Victor Murphy tips you $25. He says, thank you for being one of the pioneers of UFC. Having no weight classes was amazing. Overall, who do you think has been the best fighters from the 90s till now in any of the martial arts? You don't have to go into extreme detail on that.
Yeah, well, you have to... Guys that we all love to fight, right? Love to watch. Gerard Gordeau, right? I mean, okay, the submission game didn't work, but I love to fight. Tank Abbott. Be honest, we all love to watch him fight. He's freaking, he connects and his fight's over. But you get Don Fry and then Mark Coleman and all these guys from the also. I think all the people that you were in tune to, that you would like to buy the pay-per-view for, that at the time, and then Carlos Newton and Pat Miletich, and these guys start coming along and they start adding more technical sides to it, more submission games. Now we got the strikers suddenly learned the submission. You got Mauri Smith coming in. And, slowly but surely everybody started learning the ground game, how to stop takedowns. It was from submissions, then it became the strikers, then it became the wrestlers, or the other way around, maybe the wrestlers first, and then the strikers, because they learned how to stop takedowns. And, it all the time is going up and up and up and up like this. And then now, boom, we're in a situation that everybody knows everything. Now we got fighters that are, technically way better than we were back then. It simply is. Sure, I might be striking and submissions and so, but they work circles around me with wrestling, And then of course, you have other people who excel at submissions that I will have problem with, and who excel at striking that I have problem with as well. So, but all coming it together, the weight classes are very important. In the beginning, it wasn't because most of the time the big guys were just out of weight, out of shape guys. They were not the guys we see right now, and Gano and all these guys who are really good on the ground, have freaking knockout power and endurance. You see, that's a whole different animal. Now, weight does make a difference. That's why I always say, I wish that there was like a cruiserweight, like a 235 or something, 230, so that people don't have imagine you cannot make 205. You're like 220, and you can't make 205. So you're fighting at 220, but now you might fight a guy who's 265, who maybe cuts down from 275 to make 275. So on the day of the fight, he's 275 or 280, and he's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he knows how to strike, and he has stamina. It's a difference. Of course, it's a difference. So I was very happy with the weight classes that they added. Also, some of the rules, much healthier. I always said take the elbows out and add the knees to the head on the ground. I thought that was a would be a good thing because the knee would actually knock you out. Now we see more knockouts by submission or by elbows, but before there wasn't. It was just cuts 95% of the time, and really get stopped with a solid elbow by knockout. That was hard to find. Now, thankfully, we see this way more often, so that I'm okay with elbows. But knees, like Pride Fighting Championships had on the ground, I really enjoyed it as well. And for the rest of fighters, I just love everybody. It's really just a person who steps in there. I mean, Adesanya, like the performance that he gave last weekend, what a freak, man. I love that guy, the way he pronounces it, the way he attacks the fight, get inside the head of his opponent. You saw he was breaking him already before. He wasn't the whole Costa that we saw before. You saw in the fight, it was not him. He was also not fighting like he normally would do. I thought Costa would come forward because against a really good striker, that's your chance of winning, pushing him back. Now, what comes with it is a lot of stamina. You're going to need a lot of stamina because you're going to keep on doing it. Because you give a guy like Adesanya a little bit of space, well, you see what happened. He just picked him apart from the outside, and that was exactly what he did. Now, of course, it would be constantly in him, then it's going to be much harder. But again, you're going to need a lot of stamina in order to back up that game plan.
As far as getting in people's heads before fights, what were some of the tricks you used for any of the amateur fighters watching this?
Always be different. Do things that they don't expect. My entrance, if I had the main event, I would let him wait for a minute and a half. And they'd go like a minute and a half. That's a very long time, a minute and a half. I would have the production scream at me, go now, go now, go now in Japan. And I said, no, I'm going to wait. I just want him to be pissed off, be angry, because angry people make mistakes, And then the fight later, I would suddenly, I come up with everybody's head above the bed, and I sprint to the ring. So now they were expecting I was going to be late again, but then I suddenly would sprint to the ring and go faster. Always do something different. Get inside their heads, Talk little bad things about them that almost the regular people don't hear. It's like I would say, so who's going to win the fight tonight between so and so? I go, oh yeah, that's going to be a tough fight. It's just he's a great fighter. I'm just a little better everywhere I am. I said, but no, he's a great guy. But just for me saying that really gentle, and I keep going, trust me, the fighter that I'm going to face is the only thing he hears. All the rest of the people go, oh, that was kind of a respectful thing. But he hears, oh, he thinks he's better in every aspect of the fighting game. He's not. They start, and then right with this, maybe his coach starts saying, oh, you're a better striker, you're better than. Boom, I'm already winning. At this moment, I'm already inside his head, and those things I like to do. Because an angry person won't punch from here, I always say, right? An angry person wants to hurt you, so he loads up his punches. And that's what you never want to do. That's why I always say, if you have two fighters at the same level, pretty much the same level, the person who stays the calmest is going to one who's going to win the fight. That's it. Of course, there's more things. If the other one has zero stamina, but I mean, everything is good. The person that stays calm and relaxed will win 9 out of 10 times. That's what I believe, because he's in control.
Crypto Crassy tipped you $10. He says he loves your fights with Frank Shamrock and your face palms. Did you like the bigger rings in Pride compared to the UFC rings? Which do you prefer?
Yeah, Pride had a bigger ring. It was like 6 meters, right? So 24 feet, or 20 feet. It was a big ring. Pancras had smaller. UFC was, I remember the first time I walked into the UFC, it was like, what the heck, dude? This is big. I mean, nobody can look me. It's like 33 feet, like 9 meters. I was like, there's no corners. So I like that a lot as well. I like the cage, for the protection of the fighters. I get it all. But a ring is kind of cool because you can lock somebody up in the corner, The strategy is completely different when you face somebody in a ring or in a cage. It is. So for me, it doesn't really matter. I never had a problem fighting in the cage or in the ring. I think it's good as long as you control the distance the whole time. If you don't let yourself get locked up in the corner, then it should all be the same. So, yeah, no, not a big difference for me. I like Pride, though. It's great vision that we had. And we had some crazy knockouts. But that was also the organization at the time. I mean, Fader and Krokop and the Nogueira brothers. And I mean, Quinton Rampage, Jackson Sakuraba. I mean, he put Pride on the map. You know, a guy like that who was beating 4 Gracies, that wasn't heard of. Nobody ever did that. So yeah, he really put pride on the map. So yeah, for me personally, it doesn't care. And also with the UFC, at the beginning, the camera angles, you know, it was a little bit harder to watch, but they have such a great camera angles right now. You know what I really like as well is karate combat. You know, I'm the ambassador for that sport. It's a full contact. You can go to karate.com. The season just started. I believe actually today it will do that. So go to karate.com, and it's in a pit. And the pit is it's like 45-degree angle walls that the fighter can use. The karate it's full contact, so they go for knockouts that they can use to their advantage. You know, you can use push off. You can use to escape in the corner. If somebody tries to push you in the corner, you can literally walk up on the wall. There's a 5-second rule. That means if you take your opponent down, you can rain down strikes on him for 5 seconds. There was no clinching, you know. Now, but that 45-degree angle wall, if you fall on that, that is considered down as well. Now this guy is right in front of you, so you can hit him from there. So I really like that format that I have. I would really want to find out what that would do in mixed martial arts. Actually, that pit that they have at Karate Combat.
And UTB LLC is tipping you $5, and he wants to know your thoughts on McGregor versus Pacquiao if it happens.
Oof. It's a hard one. I got to go with the Pac-Man then, you know. And I'm a huge Conor fan, trust me. I think that if Conor would have been in great shape, if he would have used my own to train a lot, you know, and so he can go to 10 rounds, he would have gone 10 rounds with Mayweather. That's what I believe. Pacquiao is a different kind of animal. You know, he looked really good in his last fight. His stamina is there. The power is there. He explodes in and out. You know, yeah, I think that I got to go with the guy who had the most boxing matches. I have to go with Pacquiao on this one. But like I said, I'm a big Conor fan.
I'm interviewing Guy Mezger later this week. I know you fought him. I think you're friends with him as well. Could you share with us any memories of Guy?
With Guy?
Yes.
Guy's freaking awesome. Guy is we were always very close in Japan. I mean, I did a stage dive one time at the Biohazard. So I was a big fan of that band Biohazard. And on Sunday morning, I got called in the hotel in Japan, and it's Danny, the drummer. They said, "Hey, Bas, how the heck did you get my number?" Yeah, we'll figure it out for people. Whatever. We are playing tonight in Tokyo. And I go, dude, we are fighting during the day. So why don't I get you first row tickets, you come to the show, watch our fight, and then we and the fighters, you know, we can go over to you guys at night when you're playing when you're playing. So we went over there after they came to us, and then we went to them. And it was awesome. But of course, they allowed us to go on stage, and I never did a stage dive. So I start running and I jump, and of course the people stayed there. But I hit my head really hard against a Japanese person, and I remember him because I thought he lost his belt, so I lifted him up and I went to hold him, and he was knocked out. And I go, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." And I had this big cut, and I remember Guy immediately, because it was a 7-Eleven close by, they have him there as well. He got some super glue and he closed my eye. That was actually also that I saved Frank Shamrock pretty much his life, because right after me, he wanted to stage jump as well. And he jumped even higher. He went on top of a speaker and he jumped off and he flipped around in the air. And the people, the audience, they spread like ants. And I go, "Oh shit." And I started running, and I'm literally, so you have to understand, this guy's in the air. We're talking about 10 feet in the air, backwards, going to land on the concrete. Yeah, very scary. And I started running through the pool. And then I remember diving on the ground. He fell on his back, but I caught his head in my hands. That was a very close call there. But that was a crazy night when he super glued. I remember eating a freaking cockroach that I was sharing with, I had too much to drink, with the guitar player from Biohazard. And I remember the next day waking up, and I knocked on the door next to me. It's my buddy Leon was there. And he opens the door. I said, "Did I eat a cockroach?" And he goes, "Yeah, oh yeah, you did." I go, "Ah!" And then I walked back and I fell asleep again. So it was not a dream. It really happened.
And I know you used to coach Mark Kerr What are your thoughts on The Rock doing a movie about him? And is there any chance we could see you in that movie?
Well, we hope. I already let them know that I would love to play myself, and so hopefully that's going to happen. I think it's great. I thought it was a little weird that a lot of people didn't know who Mark Kerr was. When he announced it at the UFC, I think 30% of the people were clapping. And the rest, they had no clue who Mark Kerr was. So I think for those fans, they need to go back in time, and they should look at the Smashing Machine. First of all, that documentary on HBO as a badass documentary about Mark Kerr and his life, but also watch him fight by fighting championships. He was the first. Sakuraba was the big guy there, but he was the other one. On the other side, he was a heavyweight champion, and he was just demolishing everybody. Super nice guy, really great guy. Always had a good time with Mark. He's a very smart man as well.
And what are your thoughts on Kimo, who I'm interviewing in a couple of days?
Kimo is great. Kimo is awesome. I love Kimo. There's this whole misconception, and I tried to explain it to him one time, and I don't know if he really got it, because he thought I chose him to fight him, and this is absolutely not true. It was a lie. So in 2006, I made a comeback. They asked me who I wanted to fight. So they say, I'm saying Rickson Gracie. That's the first thing I say. And they say, he will be way too expensive. I said, well, then you just pick an opponent. Anybody's good. And they said, would you like to fight Kimo Leopoldo? I said, Kimo. I said, I don't know, man. I was just out with him in Japan. We had a good time, we were partying. It's good. No, he already said that he wants to fight you. I said, oh, he already said that. Yeah. I said, okay, yeah, sure. I'll fight him. Then it's okay. I just thought maybe, So now what I didn't know is that, okay, first let me tell you this. So we went to make the posters. So you have to go in to make pictures, and they're going to have to make a poster. And Kimo was there as well. Now, remember this. The last time I saw Kimo was in Japan, and we hung out together. We had a great time together. So I'm coming over and say, hey, kid, man, how are you doing? And he was looking really weird. Go, hey, you gave me a hand, but you didn't look at me and just kept looking forward. And I go to the promoter. I go like, wow, he takes this fight very serious, right? He said, what do you mean? I said, man, he didn't even look at me. I think he's angry at me or something. He said, yeah, that might be our problem. We have something to do with that. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we told him that you specifically wanted to fight him. I said, why would you do that? He said, because then it will make him train harder, and and it's better for the animosity, and then we can hopefully sell tickets more. So I figured, okay, and he said, so please don't say anything. Okay, I'm not going to say anything. But apparently he thought that I specifically asked for him, which is a complete lie. I never did that. I never did it about anybody. So plus I would say it if it was true. So that was, tell him that. Because this comes straight from the horse's mouth, that he knows 100%. I never asked for him. I just, when they told me that he wanted to fight me, I said, okay, then I fight him. But no, never asked specifically for him.
I will tell him that. And I know you recently met Dave Leduc, who I've done a training seminar with, the Lethwei fighter. What are your thoughts on Lethwei and some of the controversial rules, like you could revive a knocked out fighter?
Yeah, I love it. It's like I see when Dave came with his girlfriend, I see me and my wife in him, immediately. I mean, cute, blonde, good thing. Dave Bolt, and he's a freaking animal. He's more of an animal than me, trust me. I'm not going to say I'm more of an animal like me. No, I think this guy's crazy. I love it, though, because, I was holding him on the focus mitts, and I got to tell you, I never had elbows thrown that hard. It was really amazing to feel the power that he generates with those elbows. So I was very impressed by that. And also about the person that he is. He said that, and his girlfriend as well. I think he's a great person. Sometimes, you hear people, because they don't like when he says certain things, that if Muay Thai would be really hard, they would have called Lethwei, and then people started attacking him. I go, oh yeah, you shouldn't say that, because they're completely different sports. You never mix those things up. But listen, he's got all the rights. I say, this guy's a freaking champion, and he's all over the place. I mean, the way he fights, it's a whole different ballgame. Everything bare knuckle. I truly believe that the people over there in Burma, they don't have as much CTE as we have here with boxing. And people at home go like, oh, that is crazy what you say. No, it is not. You will see they use a lot of elbows. They will use a lot of headbutts, because those are things that you cannot break easily. The hands, they will try to stay away from the head with power shots, at least. They go more to the body. That's why bare knuckle boxing will actually be safer for you CTE wise. I'm not talking about cuts and superficial wounds. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your brain, which is the most important thing. I'd rather have a slashed up face and my brain still intact than the other way around. And with bare knuckle, that's actually it's safer because they don't go full power. The real bare knuckle fighters, they focus on the body shots. Now, Lethwei, now it's taken to a whole next level. Now you can knee him in the face, kick him in the face, elbow him in the face, and on top of that, headbutt him. I remember when somebody told me that Lethwei was the art of 9 limbs, and I didn't hear of it yet. And I started laughing. I go, what, they include headbutts? And he goes, yes. I go, oh, that's freaking awesome. And then I heard it was bare knuckle as well. Yeah, sign me up. At the time, I would have loved to do it. Not now, of course, because I'm way too old. But thankfully, Dave is doing really good. He's got his first pay-per-view coming up in Wyoming. He actually called me. He wanted to invite me to go over there. So if I have the time, I would love to check that out because he's an amazing person.
There's a bunch of fans on here asking why you never got into pro wrestling. You actually did do pro wrestling in Japan. I was wondering if you could briefly tell us some of the highlights of your wrestling career.
So funny stories. Let me tell you that. So in Japan, I did pro wrestling, yes. And it was for New Japan. And New Japan, they do the strong style. For the people at home, what that means, they use real submission moves. That's why Sakuraba, for instance, became a really good fighter because it was not just pro wrestling here in America. You hold the arm and that's somehow a move. No, those are using real submission moves. And I loved it. I got really great reviews also. Somebody called me Lethwei. He's like a younger Lethwei. And I go, who's Lethwei? And my buddy said, did they say that? Yeah. He says, dude, that's one of the best guys ever. So that means you're doing really well. So I had a really good time doing it. I tell you one story. It's a funny story because it's the first show I did in Tokyo Dome. Don Fry is in my corner. So what happens is you choreograph, right? You open the opening is choreographed, the middle part is choreographed, and then the end is choreographed, and the rest you ad lib, so to say. You just go with the things, and you have an arm bar, and you play around. So what was going to happen is that the first guy was going to throw me in the corner right away from the start. Go fight. He would throw me in the corner, would give me an elbow, would give me another elbow, and then he would go to the audience, and then he would drop him with an elbow, and I would take an 8 count. That was the script. Now, I don't know what these guys, the Japanese guys, talk among themselves. Maybe in the dressing room they say, hey, watch this. I'm going to fight Bas Rutten, the UFC guy. I'm going to really hurt him. I don't know if they say that, right? Because there's always a little bit of animosity between people. So with that in my head, he throws me in the corner. He gives me an elbow. It was perfectly timed. The second elbow was harder. Also, on the fourth elbow, he was going to drop me. The third elbow was the direct hit. It was a full-on hit. And I go, book! And right away, my automatic reflex jumps in. So I palm strike him. And he's out. And now it's just the opening of the fight. It just knocked the guy out. And I'm looking at Don Fry. He's in the corner like, oh, shit, what happened now, And the referee is looking at me, and he starts walking around the guy. And he goes, 1. And he walks around him the whole time, 2. And then finally, he started waking up. And then we continued our onslaught or our fight. But it was cool. It was 55,000 people in the Tokyo Dome to perform in front of a live audience. I had some really great matches. There's some matches that we're still trying to fight. They did like the Matrix. They had 300 cameras. And there's this moment that I kick somebody in the head, poof, and they freeze it, and then it goes 360 around. Just like I'm standing still, and all the cameras go around, and then poof, I knock him out. And they did it also with the knee. That a guy sits on his knees on one foot. I run to him, I step on the knee, and I do a flying knee on his face. And dude, it was so cool when I saw, because I hit the knee, that it goes 360 around, and then the guy gets knocked out. They actually thought that I was hitting these guys for real, but I did a lot of demonstrations in Holland, like kicking cigarettes out of the mouth and all that stuff. So I got pretty good timing. So some fights, you look. I had some fights that some people posted about, dude, this guy, you knocked him out. I said, that's actually pro wrestling. I didn't touch him. You hear the impact, but there was no power behind it. So that's what I always enjoyed, and talking to the people, and these great people also, those those pro wrestlers hanging out with China at the time. She was there one time. Remember, unfortunately, she passed away. She was hilarious. Jody was her name. The Steiner brothers, Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner, dude. And then, of course, Don Fry. Don Fry is always is a blast to hang out with that guy. So having all these guys together, the pro wrestlers coming in from America, they're in Japan. It's a good time, man. It's a good time. I remember I was sitting one time. It was Scott Steiner. There's Scott, I believe, is the big one. And I think Rob Steiner is his brother, who's the smaller guy, but Scott Steiner. And I remember I was sitting by myself in the dressing room. And I'm watching TV, and I realize that if I do with my tongue this, and I look at the TV gets distorted. It starts moving. And I go, and then Scott Steiner walks up. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Do this." I said, "Look at the screen and do this." And he looks at me and he goes like, "Stop doing drugs, boss. Stop doing drugs." And he walks away, right? So then later I'm by myself, and I'm sitting in a chair that moves around. And I'm so bored. I'm waiting for the fights, and I'm moving around. I'm just playing around like I'm in a freaking Star Wars game and using the chair as a mobile, and I'm shooting things. And suddenly when I turn to the door, Steiner stands there again. He looks at me, goes, "I told you, stop doing drugs." And then he walked away again. So it was a fun moment.
Now, I know you have your O2 trainer. You're also posting workout videos on YouTube and other places. Could you fill us in on some of your current projects you're working on?
Okay, so how do I explain this? Let me tell you, how does stamina work? So if you start training, and you keep training over and over again, you start getting in better shape. Well, why is that? Well, you get used to it. Yeah, but what is the freaking reason? Because we don't know. I didn't know. I've been a professional athlete my entire life, but I didn't know. I found out like a couple of months ago what it is. You know what it is? When you train a muscle with resistance over and over again, at the same task that you give the muscle, it becomes more efficient. And once the muscle becomes more efficient, it uses less oxygen. Now, of course, there's other reasons as well, but this is one of the big reasons. You train a muscle over and over again with resistance, right? It's the only way to train your muscles. You can't train them without resistance. It's impossible. With resistance, and then it becomes more efficient, and then it uses less oxygen, so stamina increases. Now, keep that in your mind. What people don't know is that you have around 12 pounds of breathing muscles. An average person around 10 pounds, but I'm like over 200 pounds. I'll probably have around 12 pounds of breathing muscles. And now people are going to go, breathing muscles? What? Your lungs are breathing. No, your lungs are not doing anything. Your lungs are just two bags. A back. No muscle in the lung. Zero. Doesn't do anything. The only way for your lungs to open up is to expand your chest. And there's a vacuum between the body and the lungs that will rip those lungs open. Now people go, what's a vacuum? How do you explain it? Imagine this. Imagine that the outside of your lungs are glued to the inside of your body. And then when you expand your chest, that's how you open up the lungs. Now, chest expansion is done by the diaphragm, which is a disc in the middle here, just below my ribcage. It's a disc that flattens out when you breathe in. When you flatten out, you see it becomes wider, so it pushes the chest open. That, together with the intercostal muscles that you have, those are the muscles in between your ribcage, your outer intercostal muscles, I have to say, those are expanding your chest, and that's how you breathe. So if you stop somebody from expanding his chest, he can't breathe. I actually won a fight in Japan with the Bas Rutten neck crank, which I did not know at the time what I was doing. But it's like I'm in a scaffold. I have his head is coming out here. I grab his leg, and then I grab the inside of my knees, and I push him together, and I fold his body around my upper body. You can watch this Bas Rutten neck crank. Just Google it, and you will see the move. Jake Shields loves it. He actually used it in the fight as well. So what happens is, as soon as I wrap you around me, you can't expand your chest anymore. So if this opponent just took a deep breath, he can hold that submission for only as long as he can hold his breath. As soon as he exhales, he cannot inhale anymore because I stop him from breathing in. I stop his chest from expanding. That's how I won a fight. So many years later, I realized, oh, wait a minute, that's how breathing works, chest expansion. So the more you can expand, the easier it is to fill your muscles up, your lungs up. Now, this is the biggest thing. Those 10, 12 pounds of breathing muscles that you have, you cannot train them. You cannot work them out with resistance. The only thing I'm looking for it, but it's inside now because I just did the exercise. You can work it out with the O2 trainer. So now you're updating your inspiratory muscles. Dr. Belisa Brennan, she's a very famous doctor, breathing doctor. She said that feeling of gassing is oxygenated blood leaving your limbs to support your breathing muscles, because breathing is the number one priority in the body. Water is the second, food is the third. Number one is breathing. You don't breathe for 3 minutes, you're dead. Average person, right? So if you update those breathing muscles to start matching all the other muscles that you just worked out, because let's face it, if you go to a training camp and you start training for 10 weeks or 8 weeks, let's say 8 weeks training camp, but all the muscles get increased and all better, but you forget about your breathing muscles, that's a problem. You still might gassing. My stamina right now is just bizarre. It's really bizarre, and there's no way that it is because of my stamina workouts, because I don't do a lot of them. I might have done 8 workouts now, stamina, in the last 4 months. And yes, they come a bit later now in the last 4 weeks, but my stamina is insane. I'm tired when I come out of a round. 30 seconds later, I'm back. I don't have that gassing feeling anymore. And that is what the O2 trainer does. It trains your muscles, your breathing muscles, and it updates it so it fits all the rest of your muscles that you already updated in the gym. And now everything is in sync. So now your body went from a 1.0 to a 2.0, but you also, your inspiratory, your muscles, your breathing muscles went from a 1.0 to a 2.0. And that does wonders. Now take people with COPD, PTSD, asthma, anxiety, people with back problems, things that I never thought about that was the O2 trainer was going to help them with. It's just bizarre. You go to Bas Rutten's O2 Bootcamp on Facebook. It's a private Facebook page. Go there, Bas Rutten's O2 Bootcamp. I will let you in. It's a private Facebook page, like I said, but I'll let you in. And there's over 4,500 users there. I think over 4,000. I don't know 4.5 yet. But a lot of users there. And you can ask them any question. I maybe know 5-6 people on that page. The rest, I don't know anybody personally. So everything you ask is literally from real users. And you will find one complaint. Everybody who's doing the 30 repetitions that you have to do a day, takes you under 4 minutes a day, your everything increases. Your life increases. I mean, do you know that 95% of the people breathe wrong? That's 5 in 100 breathe correct. We all breathe like this. You know why we breathe like this? Because we don't want to breathe with our belly. You know when it starts? It starts around when you're 6.5, 7 years of age. And they go like, oh, what's going on? I think 5.5 to 7. It's when people start becoming self-conscious, kids. Because they see Ken dolls, Barbie dolls, the girls see the Barbie dolls, and the kids got the abs, and they realize that if they start keep breathing with their diaphragm, well, you're pushing your belly out. People might think I'm fat. I'm 100%. You can look this up. I'm not lying there. I'm not making this up. That's why people start breathing using their shoulders, raising their shoulders. Do you know that 4 to 6 of these breaths are exactly the same as one belly breath? So you forcing yourself, which the O2 trainer actually will do, that training device that I have, it will force you to breathe using your core. Because if you try to pull air into a really tiny hole by raising your shoulders, you can't do it. You are going to be forced to use your core. That's why people will feel an immediate change after 30 repetitions. They go like, dude, my stamina's already better. And other people go like, yeah, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No, he was breathing wrong before. Now I just made him aware of breathing with the core. And that by itself already increases your stamina immediately. So right now, I'm working with a pulmonologist who works with tens of thousands of lung doctors, asthma patients, and COPD patients. They buy them from me. So the proof is in the pudding. I have 6 published medical journals. Now I'm going to get also all the records from that guy. Once that starts, I think it's going to be huge because it's cheap and it really works. That's the trick.
Well, I'm going to have to get one of those and I'll do a review on here for people. Do you have social media where people can follow you?
Yeah, o2trainer.com. That's for the O2 trainer. And for the rest, Facebook is Bas Rutten. And on Instagram and on, what is it? On Twitter is Bas Rutten MMA. But yeah, O2 trainer. Check that out. And O2 long trainer on on YouTube.
Excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Is there anything you'd like to say to close this off? I'll give you the floor.
No, just, before you make any comments, we talked already about it. Just look into both parties what you're doing, because right now the world, it's like we are by the government, we're almost set up to hate each other, and I think it's really bad. I think people should just step back and look at truth. Just look at truth. What would you do in a certain situation? And if you're left or right, it doesn't matter. Step back, because we all have that problem, and just look at the situation and then reverse it. Put yourself in a bad situation. How would you understand if certain people react like they react, because now you're just shouting what everybody else says. No, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. But once you put yourself in there, you're going to go, I can really understand why this happened. And that's what I always do. That's what I've been telling my daughters for a long time. Always switch shoes with the person that you're thinking about, because that's the only way to figure out if you give an honest opinion. And then you need to be honest to yourself. Stop listening to other people. Just make up your own mind. That's what I'm saying, Not because a famous actor says something or a famous scientist says something or whatever it is. No, do it because you want to do it, and you dive into it and go find out what is the best. That's the only thing I'm saying, because I think if everybody would start doing that, hopefully peace is going to come back.